Yo, what's good, Adam? How are you feeling? We got the other Adam, the featured guest of today, is down in the crowd. I sent you a speaker request, Adam, if you know how to operate this.
Yeah, Adam, remember, it's best to do it on your phone rather than on desktop. Desktop can get a little clunky. So if it's not connecting for you, whatever, just leave the space. Maybe close out your app. I just got completely rugged. I had to, leave the space, close out the app on your phone, and then re-enter again. Sometimes that fixes the Twitter bugs. I mean, I literally, you gave me the co-host invite. I got it. And now, like, I lost it. And then, it's like, X is X, man. Tech is hard. You know what I mean?
Tech is definitely hard, but we're here today. I'm excited for this conversation. Yeah, I am. I'm talking with Adam in the DM, so we'll sit here and shoot the shit for a little bit. Yeah, just hop on your phone. It's the best way to do it. Really, really simple. Really, really easy. We'll have a good conversation. But Adam, man, how are you feeling today?
I'm feeling great. Timeline's semi-bullish. It's funny because, we talked to Raktoshi very briefly yesterday.
Mm-hmm.
And he put out a couple tweets over the last couple of days. And I think I wrote like, Ordinal's drama season 2 begins today. Because it's like, you just see what he's doing on the timeline. He's like, interact with this post and you'll get, maybe you'll get whitelisted for a new PFP collection. And so, yeah, Ordinals is happening, man.
Ordinals is flying. Yeah. So I actually, if you guys missed the show yesterday, Raktoshi showed up literally at the very, very end. And I asked him point blank if he is Node Toshi, and if he is the guy behind RSIC 20 and Node Monkeys. And he did not answer the question. He definitely evaded it and left the stage right afterwards. But he did say that he was down to do a show. Eventually, I messaged him about it. I didn't get a confirmation again, but I said that the stage is open. So that's an exciting time. We'll see if that actually happens. For those that don't know, Adam, myself, we are talking through my account. We also video live stream this. I've pinned it to the top. I appreciate if everyone could retweet the spaces. We have Adam, the co-founder of Counterparty, is here. After 9 years, we're really excited to have him back. So make sure that you retweet the spaces so that everyone could hear this conversation. And if you have any questions throughout the show, hit that purple button in the bottom right-hand corner, post a question in the replies, or just request to come on stage. This is a very open and fun environment. So without further ado, we're going to make our rounds here, and then we'll get to the main event. Dogfather, how are you feeling, man? An OG Counterparty user, OG Doge Party user. How are you feeling about today?
Hey, GM. So I'm extremely excited to see what Adam the deaf, not Adam the monkey, but
should we call him Adam number 2, or does he probably gets the honorary place? We'll call him Adam number
1. What he's saying. I mean, I'm a huge Counterparty fan, but I was not around when this was started. So to me, this is awesome. The highest respects for everyone who was around that early and started, the whole Bitcoin NFT era, pretty much, the first real NFTs, because on Namecoin we have these expiring assets and all the controversy. So to me, everything on Counterparty is like extremely exciting, like all the early assets and, the spells of Genesis, the first gaming assets, then, the first, real community-driven crypto art with rare puppies and everything that came afterwards. Yeah, I'm so excited for that. A huge props to you guys that you could have Adam the deaf on stage.
Adam number 2, we love it. One more round and then we will get here to the show. And Pensive says, when SRC20 Counterparty, it seems the stamps controversy, brought the founder back. Yeah, we'll dive into that a little bit. But Chris, our favorite Solana expert and team member at Emblem Vault, how you feeling today?
Good morning. Oh man, what a cool opportunity here. Just kind of, almost back where we started, and Counterparty has done so much for the industry in general. and there's a solid chance that it hasn't even had, you know, the impact that it's going to have going forward. It might be bigger in the future than it's ever been. So super cool. What a cool piece of history, and could be a giant piece of the future going forward. So completely ecstatic to get into it.
Yeah, me too. For the sake of the meme, I would like Adam to start the conversation with Adam and start the conversation. So go ahead.
Yeah, man, it's an honor to have you on. Thanks so much for coming on. Really appreciate it. Do you want to give us like a little bit of backstory? I don't expect you to give your whole crypto backstory, but basically how you decided to launch Counterparty, how that kind of happened.
Sure. Thanks for having me on, by the way. This is a great opportunity. I love what everyone here is doing. Yeah, the backstory is that, you know, back in 2013, it was really the Wild West, and there was an understanding of the potential of blockchain technology, but it really hadn't been explored yet. And I mean, at the time, Bitcoin was, you know, blockchains were really only used for tokens and maybe a couple other small things like Namecoin, like you know, enabling some kinds of trustless gaming like Satoshi Dice, that kind of thing. And the idea was in the air, that we could build a lot more. We could build, you know, more functionality on top of blockchains. And the idea was out there, and no one was really executing on it. In particular, the most direct inspiration came from a project called Mastercoin, originally called Mastercoin. It was later rebranded to Omni, where they realized you could add functionality to an existing blockchain, and then no one really built anything with that idea. And the thing about a quote unquote meta protocol like Counterparty or Mastercoin, for that matter, once it was later developed, is that it's really straightforward to build. The code base can be really small because you don't have to deal with any of the consensus logic, any of the networking. You can piggyback on an existing blockchain for that, and that made it really easy to get up and running. And so the fact that everyone was clamoring for tokens and a decentralized exchange and all of this sort of advanced functionality, and it was also easy to build compared to everything else, really.
When you this is kind of one of the big ones, was the idea, and this bumped up against Bitcoiners who still, you know, give it shit for you know, the XCP token. How did you guys settle on this idea of, you know, basically burning Bitcoin to get XCP? How was that like? Walk us through that back, because I'm sure it wasn't like, oh yeah, let's do this. This is obvious. What was the thing that like settled it, like, let's do this way?
Yeah, it was actually it was probably too easy of a decision, I would say. We thought we were being very clever. The motivation behind it was the motivation behind the whole project was to mimic Bitcoin wherever possible. And the idea was the way that Bitcoin is created by burning energy, we could create a new token by burning Bitcoin. And that elegance was very convincing.
Yeah.
The decentralized nature, the simplicity, the provability, all of that was very, very appetizing. Mastercoin had raised, I think, a few $100,000 at the time, and maybe, you know, one of the first quote unquote ICOs before they were called that. We didn't like that idea. We thought it was gross. And we also were terrified of the SEC, being American citizens, all of us. And so we figured we could do this thing that was simultaneously that was safer and also just more reasonable and fair. And we could have also done some kind of pre-mine, but we chose not to. We very much tried to mimic the ethos of Bitcoin wherever possible, and that's part of the reason we were anonymous. All the creators of Counterparty were anonymous for the first, 6 months or so.
Now, just to follow up on that, looking back on it now, right? Because in a way, like that burn aspect, it didn't allow funding of like any sort of team to support the project. That kind of had that aspect to it. But at the same time, it also it did step the project away from Bitcoin, where you couldn't necessarily transact natively for like named assets and stuff with Bitcoin. And so looking back on it, hindsight 2020, what would have been the way you would have done it now, looking back historically from that perspective?
Oh, yeah, that's hard. That's hard. Yeah, I mean, it was attached to a time and a place, right? Or at least a time in cyberspace. I think that behind the creation of Counterparty, there was a lot of idealism and naivete that was, supported by the vision of cryptocurrencies and blockchain technology. And we wanted to do the purest, best thing. And it turned out that made it very hard to fund project development. We didn't have a Joe Lubin backing us. We didn't have a $20 million ICO the way that Ethereum did a little bit later. And that made it harder to compete. The thing is that when we started, there wasn't any competition, and no one had done a multi-million-dollar ICO. And the space was so small that competitive pressure wasn't apparent. But the space became very competitive, and then later, it turned out that to create a project, you need to throw money at all sorts of things, conferences and marketing personnel and developers. And so I mean, Counterparty wouldn't be created today, right? It wouldn't have attracted the attention and the interest and the passion that exists today because of its history, because of its origins as this thing that's very close to the ethos of Bitcoin itself, that is embedded in Bitcoin.
We look at it historically and we do feel that way. But at the time, I'm sure you felt a lot of like pushback and pressure and Bitcoiners calling it a shitcoin and all that sort of stuff. How did that feel at the time when you thought you were doing maybe it in the right way, the fair way, and yet you still, got this like tremendous pushback, at the time? How was that going through? And to follow on that, was that the reason why you left? That was kind of the last thing, but yeah.
No, it didn't. Yeah, we didn't leave. I didn't leave. I can speak for myself. Because of the token or anything like that. Yeah, again, it was a naivete. It was a naivete thing. It was a disillusionment, right? I thought that the hearts of everyone in the space were going to be a little bit purer than they were. That they would appreciate the purity of the projects as a conception. And I mean, from my perspective, XCP is the most fairly created token out there, even fairer than Bitcoin, of course. It's more decentralized, in a lot of different ways. And yeah, I mean, I think that I had to go through a disillusionment there, seeing that what people wanted was the price to go up, right? When
yeah.
My opinion is that at least it turned out that was a very important thing for people, and other tokens that were created at similar times that weren't launched as fairly, to say the least, didn't get the same pushback because the value was higher than when it started, and that was the most important thing. And I think that Counterparty is just really an interesting project for that reason, because it's persisted to such a great degree. I mean, it has so much value on top of it today, but the token is literally not traded on an exchange, and that's incredible, right? That the project has been able to persist despite the value of the token being low, or almost non-existent. I do think that will change for whatever it's worth. I think that the development of Counterparty and the ecosystem, or of the Counterparty protocol itself, has been very dormant. It's been in maintenance mode for a long time, even as the value of projects on top of it have grown and grown and grown. And I think that I'm really excited about what I and other engineers can do to develop the underlying protocol now, and I think that will potentially shift people's perspective on the value of the token and its use. Which is, I mean, the reason that XCP exists is because it has to exist. If you want a decentralized exchange, then it is dramatically faster and easier to use if you have a native token than if you just do everything with Bitcoin and the BTC Pay function. the token is, generally speaking, not used where it doesn't have to be used. But so much of the functionality of Counterparty that can be that is employed today doesn't actually use XCP, or the way in which it uses XCP is sort of not obvious. And that's again a function of the I think underdevelopment of the protocol for a long time.
I was going to say the one thing, why exactly did you leave? And what propelled you to come back? Those are the two kind of final things. I'll pass it to Dogfather.
Yeah, why I left. I mean, that's sort of a personal thing. It's sort of where I was in life. Counterparty was a very early big project for me, and there were other things that I wanted to do and try. And after leaving Counterparty, some number of months later, as you may know, the other Counterparty founders and I started a traditional financial technology company called Symbiont, which used blockchain technology, but didn't have a cryptocurrency or anything to do with cryptocurrencies. That was a different kind of thing. It was a thing that we all got to sort of explore together, what it was like to actually have resources and customers and users and a large dev team, all of those kinds of things that couldn't exist with Counterparty. But that didn't happen until later, right? Really, I just wanted to do something different. And I did. And I guess, why am I back? I'm back because it's really wonderful and heartwarming to see such an active community, an active ecosystem built on top of what feels like my baby a decade later. It's really just over 10 years since Counterparty launched. And that's incredible that it's not just around, but again, thriving. I think that there's been, among the developers and the community members that have been sort of maintaining the project and keeping it afloat for a long time, there's been a desire for more resources, more attention, and I, now having done a bunch of other stuff in the past decade, feel like I can bring a lot to the table by rejoining, and I'm hopeful for what I can contribute.
Go ahead, Dogfather.
Yeah, I have just a few remarks with respect to the XCP discussion. I'm like a heavy user of Counterparty, and I love the decentralized exchange. I think this was like groundbreaking, but at the same time, I think it's more like a hardcore user feature. Relatively few people use. So for the broader adoption, I think it was rather hindering the success of Counterparty. And you see that by the stamps, for instance. So they avoided XCP for a reason, because they could say we are pure Bitcoin. Yeah, the same like Bitcoin ordinals only require Bitcoin. And for some reason, this was very appealing for the broader audience. So these are like compared to Counterparty assets as relatively new projects, highly successful. So yeah, so that was just like my 2 cents with respect to XCP. Just knowing both like the ordinals world and the stamps world, and the OG Counterparty world.
Totally. I know what you mean. I never really, I see that, and I guess I understand it, but I can't sympathize. I love Bitcoin. I think Bitcoin's phenomenal, and that's why Counterparty is so closely modeled after it. But I do think that there's room in the world for more than one cryptocurrency. I think that's been proven over the past 10 years, to be frank. I think that, that sort of extreme Bitcoin maximalist position is especially understandable given what the rest of the ecosystem looks like, or most of the rest of the ecosystem looks like in comparison. Whereas Bitcoin was very ideologically pure and fair and decentralized, other projects are not. And so I think in people's minds, Bitcoin is good and other tokens are bad. And it doesn't have to be that way. I think that there are other tokens that are also fair and good and have a reason to exist. And the reason they exist is because the Bitcoin protocol itself can't do everything. It can do ordinals, it turns out, but it can't do everything. It can't do a decentralized exchange, as an example. People have tried. Blockstream tried. They raised a million years ago. They raised $100 million, and all the core developers of Bitcoin got together and they said, we're going to do all this stuff. We're going to use side chains. We're going to make Bitcoin do everything, and they couldn't. They didn't succeed. In fact, that's what created the space for all the other projects. Is the stagnation in the Bitcoin protocol. I think that there's a lot of other potential uses for cryptocurrencies and tokens that incentivize and allow for the usage of those additional, generally more powerful protocols.
So back in 2013, you mentioned at the very beginning of this conversation, you were looking at Namecoin, then you saw Mastercoin pop up, and then you tweaked some changes to both of those and implemented Counterparty. What was the original vision? Was it more, were you thinking of Counterparty as like this DeFi platform? Because I know in 2014, there was a lot of attempts at tokenizing either real world assets or types of financial products, but ultimately ended up becoming this platform for NFTs on Bitcoin. Were you thinking about it that way, that it could be, it was for NFTs, or did you have something else in mind as it kind of evolved in the early stages?
Yeah, great question. Very, very much. We thought that the goal was to build something for decentralized finance. That's actually the tagline that's still on the Counterparty website from 10 years ago. The goal was to build something that was, Counterparty implements smart contracts, and the goal was to build smart contracts for financial applications generally. Tokens were a part of that, but very early on, we implemented not a decentralized exchange, prediction markets, betting, trustless gaming, contracts for difference, all sorts of additional, especially financial functionality that blockchains support really well. It turns out that that where a lot of the interest was in NFTs, and I think that that's also the case. Sorry?
Is that in JPEGs?
In JPEGs.
That's also true of the broader ecosystem.
Yep.
Right? The largest application of Ethereum is probably still NFTs. It certainly was for years and years and years, despite it being a platform with much more sophisticated smart contracts, or the whole programmability and the opportunity of creating any kind of functionality you want. Everyone still really loves their CryptoKitties.
Yeah.
And that's something about, it turns out that's what people want to use blockchains for, at least a large chunk of it. And that's where a lot of the value is. And I wrote an article for CoinDesk a number of years ago while I was at Symbiont about the relative value of tokens and smart contracts on public blockchains. And I argued that, at least for a large number of cases, tokens are a much better fit for public blockchain use case, because the nature of the transactions is much more inherently peer-to-peer. There isn't if you're doing a more complicated multi-party transaction, what we normally think of as smart contracts or decentralized finance, then there's often a centralized entity that you can trust. Where if you think of that, that's why cash is decentralized, right? In the real world, outside of cryptocurrency, that's why people hide cash under their bed. But they will go through a broker to trade stocks, right? Everyone's given up passing around stock certificates. It's the simpler the asset, the more decentralized it is, because the number of users, the number of people that you want to interact with is much greater, and there's less friction inherently. That said, I'm very bullish on Counterparty's potential for expanding in functionality and as we're getting back into that richer DeFi space with additional features and capabilities. And I think that it just took the ecosystem a long time to get there, because tokens are such a powerful abstraction.
Yeah, I agree as well. So now we can kind of move the conversation towards present day and then kind of into the future and some of the plans. over the last year since Bitcoin ordinals proliferated at the beginning of the year, we've seen this huge genuine interest in fungible tokens, but also these other type of applications in terms of metaverse and gaming and all the other things you see on all these other ecosystems. Looking at where Counterparty is today, right? It's still primarily used for NFTs and for the individual artists, although it was originally catered towards DeFi. And if funny enough, Emblem Vault was also in that similar position, was originally created for DeFi and then ended up becoming the hub for counterparty trading. What do you think Counterparty can offer, at least with you now back and Joe Looney and a few others who are on the GitHub, that can separate Counterparty from these other protocols on Bitcoin, and so it can remain highly competitive and kind of move into this next vision, maybe Counterparty V2 or whatever the name is?
Yeah. Good question. I think Counterparty has two things going for it. One is the history. The fact that it had a fair launch, the fact that the tokens and are some of the oldest, to say the least. The fact that it has this very solid, strong ecosystem is very powerful. The second is that, and I said something similar vis-a-vis colored coins 10 years ago, Counterparty is much more powerful and flexible inherently than something like ordinals can ever be. And that's something that hasn't been fully utilized and explored because the development wasn't there. Counterparty development stopped with again a couple of very important additions over the years made by the maintainers during that period that have driven adoption in the meantime and supported the user base. Counterparty as a platform, as an architecture, is much more flexible because it can handle arbitrary smart contracts. In 2015, I even implemented a proof of concept of the Ethereum virtual machine on top of Counterparty. That kind of thing is still possible today and going forward. I think that in the short term, Counterparty's value is expanding closer to the token side, but in a way that ordinals or something like that can't do, with atomic swaps and other more advanced features that can be implemented with a richer protocol. But in the long term, Counterparty has a lot of potential that still hasn't been explored and developed.
Yeah, a lot to say the least, right? Some of the main infrastructure things to exist that the Counterparty needed to exist, at least to cater towards some of the mainstream, crypto audience, things like web extension wallets, things like, native marketplaces. I have here pulled up on the live stream a development update that I believe you, or maybe just all four of you that are now co-signers on the GitHub, have published. What would you say is the main priority for you and now the team operating Counterparty over the near term?
Yeah, I think that it's a couple of things, and in contributing to that document, I tried to express it there, but it can be distilled further. The first thing is that the code base, the repo, these kinds of things need a lot of TLC that they haven't had because the maintainers were just underwater with the amount of work supporting the ongoing usage. And I'm coming in. I'm bringing in some friends and colleagues to contribute more, and I would like to lead an effort to grow the development team dramatically, so that we can again add all this kinds of additional functionality that we're talking about. The code base really needs a lot of work to get it to the point where we can where we can start to really move forward quickly and add all of that advanced functionality. That means fixing the testing suite. I mean, I literally just an hour ago pushed the first Docker images for the core software for Counterparty server, the address indexers middleware to Docker Hub in 4 years. Those images were just stale, and because we were focusing on other things, and that's a very good thing to have, just an up-to-date Docker image for running the software. It makes development faster. It makes it easier to deploy, and getting the test suite to work. Uziel Sama in particular, who's an old colleague. He's a Counterparty OG. We've been working together to get the test suite passing for the first time in, I don't know, over 5 years. And if you don't have a passing test suite, then it's very hard to add new features without risking breaking things. If you do have one, then you can move much faster. So there's all this sort of cleanup and housekeeping. That's not going to take that long, though. It's a lot of work, but it's not going to take that long. The next step after that is supporting the ecosystem. It's wallets and explorers and API functionality, this kind of thing, because the API and the functionality at that level has been very static for Counterparty for a long time, and that's held projects back from building on top. It's made it harder to build on top of, and it's unnecessary. We can do the software development to make it easier to run explorers, and we can build open source explorers. Juan on the team has been building xcp.dev, which is a wonderful new open source block explorer. The first one that's been out there in a while. And that's the kind of thing that we need. We need community members running open source block explorers and developing them rapidly. And that means that's the kind of thing that the community needs to support in the meantime. After that, it's more advanced functionality. It's things like third-party wallet support. It's atomic swaps and other fancy smart contract stuff.
Yeah, so I have here pulled up on the live stream the simplest Bitcoin wallet that you can find on xcp.dev. And xcp.dev, you have, I guess in its most raw form, right, a wallet and a data. Maybe the majority of users who are coming from non-Bitcoin may not find this attractive because of the UX design, but right, this is in its most raw form. As you mentioned, it's going to improve. One thing that in this update that sticks out to me is the PSBT support, right? Because if you add PSBT support, then you can trade Rare Pepe and Spells of Genesis natively. From my understanding, Counterparty had issues with offering PSBT support, although I'm not a developer. It's just from what I've heard. So can we dive into this of like, how do you make this possible, and like the timeline to implement this, and what it means once the Counterparty ecosystem can offer PSBT support?
Yeah. Good question. It's really not that hard. It's we already had the Counterparty server is already able to produce unsigned transactions. It's just in a different format. We need to extend that format to use the ecosystem standard for this. And when we do, then you will immediately be able to plug Counterparty into all sorts of third-party wallets and trade or move at least the tokens on Counterparty using best-in-class software. It's the kind of thing that there just hasn't been time for over the past few years to add this kind of quality of life thing, and now we're going to do it. We're going to do these kinds of things to make it much easier to use the Counterparty ecosystem, and there's really nothing standing in our way other than the failing test suite, which is now fixed.
That is incredible to have that kind of feature, because once you have PSBT, right, if you go on Magic Eden and you see ordinals, it's much more simplistic in its trading experience. And so going through this this update, art preservation is a topic here. Can you just dive into what the intention is behind that?
Yeah, that's a nice community effort as well. It's the case that on Counterparty, as many other blockchains, digital artwork is not always hosted on the blockchain. Of course, it can be, but it's harder, more expensive. So sometimes they're just pointers to websites with hashes. And when you have artwork on a blockchain that isn't on the blockchain, then and that website goes down, then you lose your JPEG if the website goes down. And that's not ideal. And the way you can solve that problem in a effective and simple, albeit not particularly elegant way, is to just snapshot all of that artwork based upon and be able to verify it later using the hashes that are on the blockchain using all those signatures. So yeah, that's what that effort is. It was to just copy, to share using BitTorrent, which is also a decentralized protocol, albeit not a blockchain, for sharing all that data that is not on Counterparty or Bitcoin itself.
Adam, how do you look at like, and correct me if I'm wrong, but it seems like you've come back, like you're feeling like this is part of your legacy, right? I mean, that's just the vibe I'm getting. Correct me if I'm wrong, but it feels like you're coming back to kind of, take care of your baby. Like this is something that's going to live beyond you, and you're interested in supporting it, which is awesome. But I think J-Dog's in the audience. J-Dog did this for years, right? For hardly a thanks, right? How do you look at it from a strategic perspective of, look, we're probably not going to get any money for doing this, or do you have a plan to get money? But if you didn't have a plan to get money, how do you look at it like long-term support of supporting this ecosystem without kind of developer funds coming in? How do you look at that?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that's a good question. It's not easy to answer. I think it's quite feasible, however. The ecosystem is in a very different place from where it was years ago. There's an enormous amount of value on top of Counterparty. There are hundreds of millions, if not $1 billion, of tokens on top of Counterparty, and much of that is actually pretty liquid. That value is important, and I think that there are ways of extracting extracting that, some of that value, or shifting some of that value to the underlying protocol layer to support those tokens and that ecosystem in a way that increases the value of them, right? If you're a whale, if you're a rare Pepe whale, and you can contribute in one way or another to the support of the underlying platform, that's in your best interest, because when the platform grows, then the value of the tokens that are on top of the platform will grow. And I think that that's quite possible given the current roadmap and development strategy. We're going to be using different methods of fundraising to support the active development of the underlying protocol by professionals, not just volunteers, not just those with businesses that are built on top of Counterparty, where there's often a conflict of interest, or the person is too busy to be able to fully dedicate their time to the protocol, but actually dedicating in a concentrated way effort towards improving the protocol itself, the underlying platform. And that seems eminently feasible because of the activity of the ecosystem, the health of the ecosystem on top of it.
Yeah, it is. That is a little bit interesting. Can you just give us a little bit of a 411 on how the team or the people that are now signers on the repository are working together in unison? Are you kind of splitting up the duties? Is everyone kind of on a level playing field? Right? It's you, Joe Looney, JP Jansen, and one of the other Counterparty co-founders, correct?
So we have it's still very informal at this stage. We're still figuring out exactly what those divisions of responsibility are going to be. Right now, we're operating as expected with consensus, and the other core devs are great. It's wonderful to work with them. They've been working on the protocol while I haven't been involved myself, we're having active conversations either directly or on GitHub about how to best move the protocol and the reference implementation forward in the ecosystem and project more generally. It's not very formalized. I think it will need to be at some point. Right now, my belief is that we should be focusing on relatively non-controversial changes, just improvements in the software, improvements in the ecosystem, and less. We don't need to worry so much about the controversial, tricky crypto-economical decisions about how to sort of deal with certain kinds of changes to the protocol, and so that allows us to sort of all be on the same page. And I think that's the appropriate thing, since because of the recent shakeup in who's actually committing. Right now, I'm active. Uziel's active. Those maintainers that you mentioned. as well as Juan, are active, and some of them are working more on the front end or middleware or other aspects of the ecosystem. I myself right now am focusing on the protocol and the reference implementation because, as I said, that's where I think we need to kick in the ass at this moment to get it to be an ideal platform to build on top of.
That sounds like a very early developer in the ecosystem and somebody who's been paying attention to crypto economics kind of as it's evolved. We do have on stage Derp, who was the creator of SRC 721, which is the NFT kind of generative NFT for stamps, which is on Counterparty. I wanted to say hello and thoughts of conversation if you have any questions.
Hey guys, yeah, so I just wanted to come up and add a little bit of context around the PSBT thing. So Adam was talking about how some API changes will allow for easy integration of that, and that's true at the web wallet level. But in order to actually allow for the PSBT trades like we see in ordinals, there has to be a change to the send function that allows you to attach essentially an asset to like a UTXO so that you can use the layer 1 rules of Bitcoin to ensure the transaction is deterministic and final in one swap. Because right now, like Adam was saying earlier, Counterparty is significantly more flexible in terms of what it can do than a protocol like ordinals. And part of that is because it's completely abstracted from the layer 1. So I can make a Counterparty transaction to open a dispenser with assets I don't have, and it'll be mined as a Bitcoin transaction, but the Counterparty nodes will say, no, you can't do that. Whereas on ordinals, if I try to send an ordinal I don't have, the Bitcoin nodes will just disallow that. So there needs to be some slight changes to the send functionality to allow an asset to be attached to a UTXO so that you can use those layer 1 rules to ensure that deterministic transfer of an asset.
Oh, that is interesting. So Derp, from just like your expertise, like how hefty of a pull is that to do? Is that something that will take like a fork or some sort of like large consensus, or is it just something that could be done quite quickly?
I don't think it's particularly difficult. So the Counterparty database already stores like your account. So you have like your wallet is your unit of account. So it should be possible to, instead of attaching the asset to your wallet in the database, attach it to a new special type of account that essentially references a specific transaction output where that asset is stored. So I haven't gone too deep into the code, but I looked a little bit at the database structure and how everything's being put in there, and it doesn't seem like it's particularly difficult.
That's pretty exciting. Any
Yeah, we got some questions coming in through Telegram. One, and I don't know if Adam, you know this, or any idea on when Counter Wallet is going to come back online? I think I saw out there that somebody maybe put a bounty out to repair Counter Wallet, but if you give me an update.
Yeah, Robbie Dermody did, the creator of Counter Wallet. Yes, in the original core team, Robbie's biggest development focus was on the middleware and front end, on Counter Block and Counter Wallet. And Counter Wallet is beautiful, but it's been a little neglected, sadly, for the past couple of years. And he put out a bounty generously to bring it back to life, and that's underway. I think that there's one minor bug in the reference implementation that is making it a little tricky, but that we are going to fix that very shortly.
Awesome.
And then Counter Wallet will be back. And I just want to say that everything that Derp said was 100% correct. And yeah, I was thinking about it. Terminologically, I was thinking of it as a second thing. The first thing is PSBT support. The second thing is the atomic swap and UTXO functionality. But those are very closely related as well. And when people think of PSBT, then they think of the UTXO awareness. Those are very much on the roadmap.
Now, to Jake's point, does that require some sort of like, just from like give us a high level what that requires as far as like a consensus or some sort of fork of Counterparty? What would that actually require technically?
Yeah. So counterparty forks and protocol changes work a little bit differently from a mined protocol, where you have with Bitcoin, for instance, or if you have a proof of work system, then you have a difference between soft forks and hard forks and all of that sort of thing. With Counterparty, pretty much there's only one kind of fork, and it's bad. And what you want is everyone to agree on the version of the protocol that they're running through community consensus, and then everyone just upgrades, and then the protocol change goes into effect from a particular block, more or less, in the future. So the core team will release the patch as a new version of Counterparty server, and then 2 weeks in the future, it will come into effect. And from then on, transactions will be parsed with a new rule. It is possible to do fancier things, but they are generally undesirable and from a performance perspective.
So this requires, just so we know, like the uninformed, non-technical guys like me in the crowd, it just basically requires community consensus. People have to agree that this is the right
Correct.
way.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yes, exactly. And the good thing is that this I think will be a very uncontroversial thing. In general, protocol changes should be uncontroversial, right? They should make the protocol better and richer, and fix problems, right? And again, the Counterparty has a very strong, flexible core on which to build, so we can add more functionality without lots of nasty trade-offs very frequently.
Yeah, I don't know why anybody would be against native counterparty
Right.
trading.
No,
Right,
Jake. See, I like it the old way when you had to use dispensers and get front run. That's the way I like trading.
Mhm.
Yeah, well, that would be exciting for our
That's
chain
awesome.
agnostic marketplace. That'll be cool. If it's easy as PSBT support, that's seems like it'll be an easy addition there. We do have Elian on stage who's been up here. I was curious, do you have any questions?
Hi there, how's it going? Super happy to be here, learning more about what's coming for Counterparty. Gotta say that I'm a big fan. I usually, because I like NFTs and the history of NFTs, and of course I usually start with Counterparty and what was being done back in those days, and the story about you guys burning what it was, like 1,200 bitcoins, I think
2,000 bitcoins.
2,000 bitcoins. That's such a cab move, man. And I just like, I really like that story because, you know, in an ecosystem where everybody is just exchanging tokens for bitcoins, and like you guys burning Bitcoin for tokens, that is such a chat move. And I just want to kind of I think I started using Free Wallet and the overall infrastructure of Counterparty actually recently with stamps. Before that, I received a couple of assets as a gift from creators on Counterparty, but I really started using it with stamps. What do you think is the kind of the future for the UX UI or kind of the usability of Counterparty? I think is one of the areas that kind of falls behind in regards to like everything that is out there. But, you know, kind of now that seeing this, how do you say, like conversation about Counterparty, what do you think is the future for the usability, the UX, the UI? How would you improve it? What do you think about that?
Yeah, I think that Counterparty is behind in UX, in wallet support, in block explorer support, in interoperability. And Counterparty, you know, as a community, hasn't always been friendly to projects that are built on top of it. I hope that all of those things change, and I'm going to do my part to make sure that they do. I think that there are a lot of things that can be done to improve the user experience, and I'm going to be in favor of most of them, because I think that that's the most important thing, right? Making sure that everyone can easily, accessibly use the platform to build and build things on top of. That means changing altering, expanding the Counterparty server API to make it easier. It means improving performance. It means just shifting resources and planning and coordinating. It means adding protocol changes, like the PSBT, like the atomic swaps, and API changes, like just PSBT that will allow for better interoperability. I think that Counterparty has the ability, has the potential to be very much easier to use, and all the software around it should be beautiful and friendly.
Awesome, thank you. Bullish.
Yeah, bullish to say the least. So you mentioned some of these interesting use cases at the beginning of the show. Some things like decentralized betting, right? Atomic swaps. Which one are you most interested in? Which one do you find most intriguing for Counterparty that could really separate itself from the rest of the meta protocols?
Yeah, I think that a lot of that functionality it wasn't a proof of concept, but it wasn't much more than that either. It was the betting was the first betting on a blockchain. The decentralized exchange was the first decentralized exchange on a blockchain. The CFDs, contracts for difference, were the first ones. Trustless gaming, these were all the first. It wasn't, these things weren't built with a mature understanding of what the user interaction patterns were going to be, how people wanted to use blockchains in general. And so I don't think that the way forward is sort of a straight line, from those implementations as they exist today. I think that we need a much longer term, forward-looking roadmap for improving the functionality, and that's going to probably involve a much more flexible, powerful protocol, right? Built around smart contracts, right? Smart contracts as closer to how smart contracts are conceived of today, since Ethereum and siblings. In the shorter term, the decentralized exchange needs the most attention, because with things like what Dirk was talking about around atomic swaps, and that's where there's right now tons of demand, and there's a lot of low-hanging fruit to improve the power of the protocol and the user experience. So I think starting with the token, starting with everything that the ecosystem is built around right now, and then establishing a longer-term vision for a much more powerful platform for smart contracts on top of Bitcoin.
And when you say atomic swap, do you mean Counterparty token for Counterparty tokens? So in this reference, I could trade an FD card for a rare Pepe. Is it atomic swaps, XCP, the asset for a Counterparty token? Is it Bitcoin for Counterparty, etc.? What type of atomic swaps can exist?
Yeah, I don't want to overpromise, because we don't have a design yet, and I don't want, there are trade-offs in these things. I'm pretty confident that we can do all of the above.
Wow, that's exciting to say the least.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think a lot of it, to the earlier point, it's like, well, from a development standpoint, you want to make stuff easy. So when things happen and people want to build stuff, then it's easy, right? I think we saw with stamps, there was this drive driven by, users who wanted access, but none of the stuff was built around it. And, so I think in a lot of ways, I think what we're hearing is, getting that ready and making it easy for developers to come in when they're building something, either to create new use cases or whatever, sports betting on Counterparty, but make it easy for them, rather than like what the stamps devs ran into, which is like, oh, this is really, really hard, right?
Yeah, there's been a lot of unnecessary friction.
Yeah,
I'd like that to go away.
I think, did we have Sol up on stage? I'm seeing him. Is he still up on stage, Jake? I don't know if Sol had something to say.
No, he dropped off. I got one final question, and then I'll pass it to everybody else. And if anyone wants to come on stage, please request. The Stamps Telegram is telling me to dig for alpha. So I got one final question. Is, you mentioned at the very beginning that the XCP, the asset, has a lot of potential. What type of utility can be ascribed to XCP, or what other type of things can XCP be used for as you guys push new updates to Counterparty, the protocol?
Yeah. XCP has, it's simply the case that on a meta protocol like Counterparty, a native token can do a lot more than Bitcoin can, because Bitcoin is limited by the features of script, which is not changing, or is changing extremely slowly. And so the answer is, I mean, all of the functionality is going to, that it's built on top of Counterparty is going to use XCP in some way, and some of it's going to be necessarily be deeply integrated in with XCP. And I think that we're going to need to design and implement a sophisticated native gas system of some kind for that advanced functionality. Not just a simple hard-coded fee, but something much more flexible, dynamic, and with the appropriate crypto economics.
Are you saying that like an XCP fee that would, I mean, is that something where that could go to a development team, you know, as a support function?
Mm-hmm.
Are you thinking something like that?
Yeah, it's hard. It's not obvious to how to do that, because as far as I'm concerned, you know, the decentralization of the protocol is sacrosanct, and we don't want to hard code some addresses for developers in the protocol unless we have to, right? And like, you know, and I don't think we do. To be clear, that's not a trade-off I want to make. And even that it would be with some again very decentralized mechanism for choosing that, vetting that, overseeing it, etc. But really, I think that there are elegant ways of doing it, of incentivizing good behavior, and so forth. But simply you know, raising funds from fees is tricky, because that would be too centralized for what Counterparty is and should be.
Yep, I agree as well. We do have Davis on stage. One of my favorite Counterparty historians. His great timeline, probably his pinned post. I haven't checked yet, so make sure you guys check that out. What's good, bro? What do you think of the conversation?
This is great. I am super excited. When Counterparty, the website, put that post up and PBST was laid down on as an idea, I got really excited. But I got a question for just a proof of concept that John Villar had a while back, and it has to do with virtual machines. And I was wondering if that, I know it was just a proof of concept then, but what, if any, if there's a possibility for that to be experimented with in the future?
Yes, very much. I'll say I'll say that I worked, so after Counterparty, I worked for 5 years as the CTO of Symbiont, which had an absolute crack programming language team. And we developed a very sophisticated VM language. I spent a lot of time working on how to build rich, complicated smart contracts, also with unique privacy preserving features. I would love it if Counterparty had a rich, powerful, easy to use smart contract language of some kind built into it. When that'll happen, how that'll happen, I do not know. The most important thing is supporting, again, the active community that we have, and building a sustainable path for funding, development, and growing the ecosystem. But I also am excited about the potential for more advanced functionality being added to the protocol as well. And I think that Counterparty is well positioned for that. I'm interested in it, and I think we can do it.
Yeah, it is really, really exciting to hear. XFT, do you have any questions for Adam, or just comments on the conversation?
A little bit of both. Always a good conversation at the Emblem spaces. All right. Well, let's just have a little thought exercise for a second. All right. If there's an opportunity to maybe possibly kind of sort of redo this from scratch, even if it's just with the considerations of adding updated features to the blockchain. What considerations should there be, or would you have in how AI should, or quite possibly could be integrated into a counterparty ecosystem, right? And the second part, just if I can get it all out in one swing, I don't think the suggestion of the previous gentleman on a dev wallet should be something that is so easily dismissed, even if it's not a dev wallet specifically. Right, you have a cool opportunity to even reconsider how the monetary system could be more spread. Right, is Ethereum burning a portion of the transaction fees the best solution? Well, what if that went to a community pot that folks, organizations could access? That would make Ethereum, quite a more interesting platform. So I don't think developers should set aside considerations on how you can add gamification layers within the mining algorithm to allocate some funds somewhere that can go to organizations either.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So on the first part, all I can say is that I'm following the AI space very closely. I'm familiar with it. And I think that there's nothing particular on my roadmap there, but there's always, of course, a lot of potential, specifically around digital art. And I totally hear you around a dev wallet. I really am not dismissing any of those possibilities for my part. I think that I want to emphasize the importance and respect that I attribute to the decentralization of the protocol. And I think that there are trade-offs there to be made, but they need to be very, very carefully considered in all of the different pros and cons weighed. I think that we can get clever. I think that there are a lot of things that we can do to find good ways of sustainably supporting the development of the protocol. I'm not very worried about it in the short term. I'm going to be bringing some resources. I'm going to be working with others in the community to rally support. And I feel like just in over the next few months, development is going to increase. Development speed is going to increase dramatically, even without any kind of community fund. That said, if we need to do it and we can find a good way to do it, then we will. For whatever it's worth, I'll say that Bitcoin full nodes are not compensated either, right? It's sort of hard to pay people for running a node if they're not mining, and there are other cryptocurrency projects that don't have a dev team fund, that didn't have an ICO as well, and are still able to push the protocol forward. I generally lean towards that, but I also, for my part, I've learned from the mistakes of my youth in the creation of Counterparty, where we didn't allocate enough resources to the development, and that made my life a lot harder. That's not going to happen again. It's not going to be the same kind of thing that it was 10 years ago, where it was me and Uziel part-time and Robbie and doing all of the work for the entire platform and ecosystem for a number of reasons. And sustainably funding and supporting development of the platform and ecosystem is at the top of my list of priorities.
Yeah, well, it's dope to hear Counterparty is exciting again. I remember trying to create colored coins with you guys in my co-working space in Hiatus, San Francisco, way back in the day. And it answers my question as to why Counterparty was at 650. Yeah, so it was up 22% yesterday. I was like, what the hell's going on?
So, sell the news, baby. Sell the news.
Sell the news.
Gotta love the degens. It's interesting thinking about what additional logic can come to Counterparty. Right, with EVM, it's interesting. I actually think, from an Emblem perspective, it might even be easier to just Emblem already exists on Counterparty. There's already Emblem Counterparty tokens. If you got PSBT support, it's probably easier doing it that way of bringing all the assets to Bitcoin through Counterparty, through PSBT trading than it is to do it through ordinals, if I'm being completely honest. So we'll have to talk about that. Adam's still there. We'll have to talk about that because I think that's actually very exciting. The PSBT kind of stuff is the most intriguing to me. Native asset trading, but also just the idea of adding additional importing all the assets from every other chain to Bitcoin through Counterparty, PSBT trading. Very, very exciting. Very, very exciting. Soul, what's up, bro? What do you think of the conversation?
Hey guys, good convo. Welcome back, Adam. Yeah, since ordinals really was the catalyst for putting a spotlight back on Counterparty, I was just curious, like, what you actually think about it, and why or why not Counterparty should not be some sort of integratable platform to leverage everything that's happening in the ordinal space, whether it's the simple ordinal theory part or the inscription part or the rare sats, the essentially what you could consider a variant of colored coins, all these different sats that are being with sattributes and are essentially tokens themselves now. Do you not see this as an opportunity to try to, ride on that wave?
I very much see it as an opportunity, not just to ride on the wave, but to support it. I think that I would like to see Counterparty much more supportive of projects that are built on top of it, even if they're not to my taste. I think that what Counterparty's job is to be a platform, not a product, and not even a market. And so Counterparty is doing a good job. The Counterparty community is doing a good job when we are supporting projects that built on top of it and that are using Counterparty and therefore are using Bitcoin, that are all on the Bitcoin blockchain through this protocol that we've all developed and have been using for creating value, exchanging value, and trading it with each other.
Bullish. I think from some second order effects, as Counterparty gets upgraded, could be bullish for Doge Party and Monoparty, and maybe even fork it to some of these other ETXO chains. Kind of exciting. Ad, what are your thoughts about that in terms of, like, are you a fan of Doge Party and Monoparty? I think those are the only two, the forks that exist on other chains, but have you followed those at all? Or are you supportive of them?
Yeah, no, I'm supportive of them. I mean, I'm fuzzy on the details of Monoparty. It's been a moment. But I was actually just going through the.
Wait, you don't have heavy Monoparty bags, bro?
No. Maybe I do. No,
I forgot those wallets. Yeah.
Yeah, I was actually going through all the old issues, stale issues on the Counterparty GitHub repo, and came across a couple of nice things from the Monoparty team where they were pointing out improvements or bugs in the Counterparty code base that they had fixed that had not been fixed or merged. So those are being fixed, and I think that there's something to be gained. Not just with product for things that are built on top of Counterparty, but also things that are. But also these parallel projects. I think Doge Party is great. I'm fully supportive of that, and all the things that JDog's been doing.
Incredible, to say the least. Dogfather, does that get you hyped or what? As one of the OGs of Doge Party. If you're there, might be riding around in his Beamer. Oh, funny. Well, if anyone else has any conversations, please feel free to come up or post them. If not, we'll probably wrap this space up and going at it for a little over an hour. I mean, Adam, dude, it's really, really awesome to see you come back. Right, this is probably one of the larger Counterparty spaces we've had in a while. Obviously, people are speculating on XCP, the asset, as well. We all want native trading. We want additional functionality. I truly think Counterparty can compete with ordinals in terms of just the amount of value that it could provide. It was a little unfortunate that SRC20 left. Stamps is still there. They've mentioned they may leave or not, but this gives just, it empowers creators to come in and build their own meta protocols on top of Counterparty or leverage the existing code base. And So it's really, really exciting, man. And appreciate you for coming back. And 9 years, dude, absolutely incredible. I'm sure it was probably wild to watch over that time. But any final comments, Adam, or anything you like to leave the community, or maybe even the best way for anybody who's interested in participating in Counterparty in terms of development? What is the best way for them to get involved?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, it's absolutely been wild. I'm my heartwarmed to see all this activity, all the support, all the loyalty, all the trust that is very much appreciated by me, and as I'm contributing to this project again, having gone off and done other things, I would like to show my respect for all of that and return it. I would love support from the community for what I'm trying to do with everything. The best way to do that is reach out on Telegram. There are a couple of Telegram channels to join. Some are more or less busy focused on different things, but reach out. And always, there's GitHub. There are issues to fix. There are pull requests to submit. There's all of these things, and then going forward, there are going to be other more concrete ways for everyone to contribute to the project. That is a major priority for me, and for the other members of the core team, figuring out a sustainable way to get more people involved financially and not with moving the project forward.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And thank you very much for having me. Thank you for hosting the space. This is all wonderful, and I'm really glad to be here and to see it all.
Yeah, really appreciate your time. I hope we could do this, maybe once a quarter or something, and do some updates and
absolutely
continue the conversation. Awesome. Other Adam, I'm calling Adam McBride. You're now Adam number 2.
Adam number two.
Adam
Definitely
number 2
in this conversation.
What's your takeaway from here?
Man, it's so bullish, man. How could you be anything but pumped, man? I mean, J-Dog gave over the reins, but you just feel, could you feel any more confident in this? Like, this is complete bullish news. Like, to have a dev, well-traveled, built stuff before, come back to put additional energy and resources into Counterparty, like, bro, so excited about this. This is awesome. Great to talk with you, Adam. Finally get to talk, hear a little bit of the history. And boy, Counterparty's looking up, man. No wonder it's only up 20%, bro. XRP, bro, or XCP. Get on it, Vens. It's bullish. Like, this is tremendously bullish. And I think Counterparty obviously has this rich history that is, we all find super valuable and interesting. And I think once it gets into the wider world, boy, how could you not be bullish on it? So very, very excited, man. And Adam, very, very, very excited that you're back and taking the reins here and driving this forward. It's awesome, man. Thanks so much.
Yeah. One final comment to just giving respects to J-Dog, who's been the lead maintainer of Counterparty over the last 5 years. The protocol and the community would not be where it is today without you. So really appreciate everything that you've done and look forward to BTNS as it evolves. For everyone that's not aware, Adam, myself, and Chris, we work at Emblem Vault. We host the show Tuesday through Thursday with Dogfather at 11:30 a.m. Eastern Time. We cover everything Bitcoin, everything collecting, cross-chain, multi-chain, whatever you want. Everything that's probably just not a PFP. We're covering all the infrastructure and fun love. We'll be back next Tuesday. And just remember, next Thursday, we are hosting the Emblem Town Hall, the first town hall in its history. Our founder, Shannon, will be there.
Let's go.
Talking and answering any question. I think this will be his first space in maybe like a year or so. We have a lot of exciting developments, a lot of things to launch. You'll be hearing about Emblem Markets, the new Emblem front end, bulk minting, some redacted projects. We're really, really ready. And we are finalizing Emblem legacy migration. So you'll hear there. The remaining 25,000 vaults in the legacy vault, there will be action items for users who want to move to it. Shannon, our developer, is in basically, and our new developer, Swapna from Coinbase, are basically in dev mode from now until next Thursday. So really, really exciting times to say the least. We're all going to be building this together. And until then, we'll be back Tuesday at 11:30 a.m. Eastern time. Until then, guys, we'll see you later.